So at this point, I'm going to go back to the final template. And this is where we left off at. I'm going to clean up the edge of this one. So the reason why I'm choosing my rectangular selection tool, that being the Mary tool, I call it in a classroom, is just because like the pink panel borders are rectangular. So I'm just going to quickly select this and press delete just to clean this up a little bit. Command D. Before I go any further, I'm already noticing that my panels are kind of getting disorganized, and it would be a good idea for me to rename these. So I'll make sure that, all right, this I know is page 6. Page 2 is the content above, so I'm going to hold down my space bar to get the hand tool. And even though I'm working upside down, it's not really a big deal because I know that the content here relates to that. And then when I go up to this one, that's also page 2. So I'm going to do, to make 100% sure, I already have page 2 here selected. If I hold down my shift key, I'm just going to get that other layer in my layers window. After that, I'm going to hold down my command key and just click the letter E as an echo. That merges those together. I'm going to rename this page 2. At this point, I go to my layer 2 here. I'm going to click this eyeball tool. And then it's just so I don't get lost, I'm going to call this page 3. So going back to page 6, I'm going to zoom in on this by clicking the letter Z on my keyboard and dragging it towards the right side. I'm going to add some white here. So just because the shape of this is, rectangular, that's the reason why I'm going to click the letter M on my keyboard as in Mary. And I'm just going to draw a fast selection around that area. And you can fill a selection that is visible, which means the eyeball is showing and the layer is selected. So if everything is there, I can go to Edit, Fill It, and I want to make sure that the fill contents say white. You have other options, but white is the one that I need. I have my selection here, so if I hold down my command key and click the letter D, it deselects. At this point, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get I want to get a reaction shot. So at this point, I click the letter B as in Bravo, and I have my brush tool selected. And I do have a black color, and it's always a good measure to make sure that everything up here is set to 100, 100, except for the smoothing. And I'm going to get a reaction shot here. So I'm going to have him looking towards the right side. And I think this would be like a little payoff right there. I'm going to select with my lasso tool, L for lasso, his face, and I'm going to enlarge this. So you can enlarge things by, I mentioned it earlier, if you hold down the command key and click the letter T, you get your transformation toolbox. And I'm going to hold down my shift key and drag this towards the right side. Because I don't, need that much. All I need is just a piece of that shoulder showing. So I'm just dragging this just to show, perhaps like this much information. Even though I'm just going to chop up a little piece of the head, it does not matter. So, and then perhaps even move this over. At this point, I like what I have going on here. So if you ever see that your artwork after pressing Command T looks a little bit blurry, it's just because that's the Photoshop's fast way of giving you an instant preview. But as soon as I click this check mark, cleans it up a little bit. I'm going to deselect this by holding down my Command key. And then if I press the letter D, it deselects. I think part of the reason why Photoshop can be a little bit intimidating because a lot of the hotkeys are very similar. So for example, earlier, if I if I wanted to default colors in black and white, remember, it's, you just press the letter D without holding down anything else. So it's really easy to get confused. But anyway, I think it just takes practice. So that's the dreaded P word that most students hate. Anyway, I'm just going to clean up that layer. I'm going to make my brush size a little smaller. And I'm just going to draw a fast line just to... Oops, I forgot to revert this back, so I can click this little thing right here. So there it is. Just a fast panel, and I can quickly press my Mary tool to get a fast selection. Delete and the keyboard, and I'm gonna clean up this edge right here. That way, it just doesn't interfere with page 5. So at this point, you can see, if I zoom out with the Z tool, and if I hold down Option and drag to the left, I'm nearly done with my story. So I like to keep my payoffs, panels kind of big. That's just me. So expression, the reaction. Now I know that whatever goes between pages 3 and 4, I'm going to have to, to hurry up this page process. So at least I have a finish line. So after the command, I'm going to go to my rough sketches. And actually, before I do that, I think it wouldn't be such a bad idea to work on page 5 too. I'm not sure whether or not I want this shot. I'm going to do another quick panel right here to the right just to kind of figure out another idea. Before I do that, if I have my brush, black color, everything seems to work, the layer selected. If this ever happens to you and it's because you're trying to draw, but it's not letting you, it's because you have some other area selected. In other words, the selection is like you're telling Photoshop to only focus on one area. So you'll see that, for example, I can draw inside this selection, but if I go outside, nothing happens. So, just be aware of that. You need to deselect that. Select, deselect, and now you can, and I will. I'm going to draw just another variation of this panel. So here's another variation where she's like, ooh. I'm going to have her wincing right here, and then perhaps like the barf is coming out like that way, and I want the impact. And then I think even the hair going in the wind, and she just got caught off guard by this. So I think I may use this. It depends on how dark your humor is. So Mary tool, I'm going to select this. Command C to copy this. I'm going to go to my final template, and I'm going to press Command Vicky, and then I'm going to press the letter V by itself. Again, don't get confused. Command Vicky is what you use to paste things on, and just Vicky by itself is what you use to select your move tool. So I'm going to get, so this would be that panel. I'm going to go back to my sketch, and at this point I'm doing stuff backwards, selecting this top panel, Command C. So when it comes to choosing shots, whether they be close-ups, medium shots, wide shots, it's really whatever the action dictates for the most part. Command Vicky to paste the panel in. Vicky again is my move tool, and I'm gonna keep that there. Sorry, just thinking in advance. And Mary, so I can select the right side because I don't need that much panel there. And delete key is that delete keyboard key, which is near the center and towards the top of your keyboard. I'm going to deselect by holding down my command key and clicking the letter delta. So that's 2 layers. I'm thinking of maybe making this a little bit more squat. So I'm gonna I just press command, I held it down, and then I click the letter T for my transformation tool, and I'm just gonna reduce this panel down. The reason why is because I want to be able to fit more content up here. And I am gonna accept that transformation. And then this previous panel right here, I'm gonna reduce the size of that. Yeah, about that much. Enter, return to, to accept that transformation. Go back to layer 2, and at this point, I'm going to make sure I click on the letter V as in Vicky for my move tool. I'm going to move this thing down, and so far, I'm down with page 6, and I'm working backwards so that I can meet up with page 3.